Good evening, dear listener. I'm Dan.
My name is Louie.
And you're listening to Early Man Walking. Dead Man Soccer.
Trying to stop the motion of Hollywood.
This is Dead Man Walking.
So, while I highly doubt that comedies or even animated films in general are going to be our standard fare, Aardman movies, as far as I'm concerned, I guess stop motion movies in general are still worth noting because they're not a dying art per se, but they are incredibly rare. And I think that means they need as much. They deserve to be touted whenever possible.
How can I compare them? I don't know. Like fighting games of video games. It's like a niche genre that's always going to be around, but it's probably never going to get super huge.
I mean, I'm not really seeing the connection between Wallace and Gromit and Mortal Kombat, but sure, why not? They really had it out with that chicken, man.
No, I was thinking more like Blaze Blue or Tekken. Never mind.
All right, so first and foremost, obviously we're here talking about Early Man. It's Aardman's latest contribution to the cinematic world, and if you haven't heard of it, you're not alone because there was no advertising campaign for it.
Yeah, you're right. I had to go look for the trailers of this. It's only because I regularly check IMDb that I even knew it existed, and it's pretty lame. Well, it came out the same weekend as Black Panther. I mean, that kind of says it all.
That's true. I mean, it would suck picking a nice, comfortable February release date, thinking, "Oh, this will be good to get some nice." I don't know. We'll command number one movie for 2 weeks, then Black Panther shows up and just blows everything out of the water for the entire month. But what are you gonna do?
Well, it could have, had some legs to stand on if it weren't for same weekend, which probably wasn't something that they had any control over. These movies typically, the release dates are planned far in advance.
Either way, that's why we feel justified being 2 weeks late with this review, because we figured, you know what? The odds are you've probably seen Black Panther by the fourth time now, and so if you want to see something else that's not just Jennifer Lawrence pretending to be Russian, you can go see this film.
Oh yeah, Red Sparrow.
Another forgettable. Or if you want to see Oprah Winfrey dress up as, I don't even know. See, I never read the Wrinkle of Time books. That also just looks like a rolling disaster.
we never even considered these other movies. There was also Annihilation.
None of these have been well promoted.
Which was Arrival, but with guns and I guess more trippy. I guess there's more
guns
to it than
and
that.
Drugs.
There's people telling me that it's good. I don't know.
But back to Early Man, because honestly, of all the stuff that's in the theaters right now that you haven't seen, you should probably go see this one. But I feel like first and foremost, it deserves the disclaimer, this is a soccer film. And I think it's very important to establish that because the trailers, at least the ones we got to see here in America, barely even hinted at the presence of football.
The trailers is basically, Early Man's a comedy. It's about, Stone Age Neanderthals, and they're running with Bronze Age snobs. And then they have to, go on an adventure to stop them from taking their valley.
No mention of soccer. And this doesn't really count as a spoiler because it shows up and begins to play a pivotal role in the movie less than 2 minutes into it.
But, see, and that's the thing, because I was thinking about
that. It's the driving force of the entire plot.
Is this even a spoiler? Because neither of us knew it was going to be a soccer film. It's almost like they wanted it that way. It was probably okay for the international market to know that it was a soccer film, where they care about it and they call it football.
I guess it's not really a big deal, but it definitely caught us off guard.
It was a big deal for some people. It made the movie feel more cliche and fall in line with a sort of generic kids sports plot.
Well, that's kind of what it set out to do. I mean,
that's
there's
exactly
nothing wrong
what
with
it
a well-made sports movie.
That's exactly what it is, and I don't care. It was fun. I had a fun time. I laughed right from the very beginning.
Now, I mean, I will say, coming right out of the gate, while I liked it, this wasn't the strongest showing that Aardman has made.
No.
I'm a huge Aardman fan. You're a huge Aardman fan. I think by far that, well, for me, Chicken Run and The Curse of the Were-Rabbit are tied for the best they've ever done. This isn't bad. It's just not as great as some of the stuff they've put out.
I kind of put this on par with Pirates, which oddly enough was another film
that kind of snuck up on everybody. It's like they're making these and not telling anyone about it.
It snuck up on us, and when you went to go see it, it wasn't quite about what you thought it was. Like, Darwin showed up in that one. We weren't really sure why.
And it wasn't like it wasn't educational at all.
Oh, no.
Darwin's like this lusty little weirdo who's trying to hook up with the Queen of England.
Wait, is that what was happening?
Yes, he was trying to impress Queen Victoria by bringing her weird food.
Oh my gosh.
That was the whole point.
I remember the weird food aspect of it, because the main villains were like these people poaching rare game.
The point is, in the last 5-10 years, Aardman's got into this habit of just we're going to make this fantastic stop motion video and then tell nobody. We're going to make it in our basement and just keep it there forever. And it's like someone had to go in and just break them out of this cage that they were in and slowly release them into movie theaters without telling anyone.
I don't think they were expecting them to be huge hits ever.
No, and they never have been, but they've always had a cult following.
Yes.
And I guess they just expected their cultists to show up and hammer down the door, which, to be fair, we kind of did, but...
Yeah. No, you can expect me there. I try to make it to just about every
Aardman film.
Every Aardman film, and
in case you haven't noticed, this
films.
Review is pretty biased.
I'm a huge fan of stop motion animation just in general. I'll go see just about any one of them. I think it's a style that, there's only one way of doing it. People have tried to incorporate CG here and there. This movie does incorporate CG, and I'll get to that in a little bit.
But tastefully.
Right.
You barely notice it.
The thing is, to do this well, you have to... There's only one way to do it, and it all looks real. It's not like CG where things are going to, look fake.
They use it to complement the stop motion rather than to overwhelm it.
Right. Well, and mostly what it's used for is since it's a soccer movie, there's a big stadium in the background characters because they don't want to animate all those people. Those are all CG'd.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I read into this a little bit. And because they said they didn't want to do straight up CG films anymore. The director is a big fan of just doing it by hand the old-fashioned way. He thinks there's just a certain charm to it that you can't recreate any other way.
What's the name of the material they use? It's like plastine or something? I forget what they call the putty they use to make their characters, but
I'm not sure.
Now, I will say, I feel like this film, it definitely lacked some of the relentless humor of their other films. And when I'm talking about relentless, with whether it's Were Rabbit or Arthur Christmas, each scene was just absolutely jam-packed with references and quiet little jokes. You almost had to watch them several times to pick up on everything. And if you're watching with other people, you might have someone else in the room who just starts laughing all by themselves because they noticed something that no one else did. With Early Man, partly because of the setting, there really wasn't as much of that.
There's minor details.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where Aardman stands out, is like you said, throwing in a lot of minor things that can be seen as funny. Because this is so expansive and part of the setup is just a wasteland.
So the opportunity for background shenanigans is kind of limited. Even there, though, I got to give them credit for pulling together the gags that they did do.
But they do like to find gags in little things.
Yes.
Right from the very beginning, they say, this prehistoric era near Manchester around lunchtime.
There's just little things. It's not consistently funny, but as a result, it's the funny moments almost catch you off guard.
Yeah.
I guess that makes it funnier.
Oh, it definitely
Humor
does.
is subjective.
That's kind of one of the hardships of reviewing comedy in general, is it is completely subjective.
I mean, I'd hate to use the word because I feel like it's been used in a lot of other reviews for this film, but it was a delightful movie. Can I say delightful? It was delightful.
You can absolutely say delightful.
We're
reviewing a family film, if you haven't noticed.
It transposes a British-French rivalry onto a soccer match in the Stone Age, and humor aside, has a pretty straightforward story.
So it's about this tribe. Like I said, Stone Age tribe. They live in this valley surrounded by nothingness. It's just their little area, and they hunt rabbits.
I don't know what it is with Aardman and rabbits.
or just Every animal has a face and a personality, and the rabbit that they're hunting is no exception, and it's great.
Well, don't want to give too much of the film away.
No, but so the main characters are Doug and his animal pet Hognob, which was like a dog boar thing.
I'm not sure what that was. I think it was meant to be like a prehistoric boar, but
anyways, it follows them, and he's like, oh, we need to hunt bigger game, and then the bronze people come in and take their valley, and then it's all about them trying to, devise a way to get their valley back, and they do so through soccer, i.e. football. It's British, so should we call it football? I don't know.
No, we fought a revolution, so we could call it soccer.
Fair enough. This movie goes through great pains to remind you that it's British, though.
Well, but it's the fact that the bad guys are clearly French.
it's a British person putting on a French accent,
which is fantastic.
Tom Hiddleston. Yeah.
I guess for me at the end of the day, it was less funny, more goofy. If that makes any sense, and I didn't mind that as much.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It doesn't try to be anything grander than it is. I mean, Aardman films, I don't think I've ever tried to be like Pixar. Like, they've never tried to be, have some grand, adult message in it. It's just like, this is fun. It's kind of a B movie, and, it's okay with that. That's what I took away from its story. And really its goals.
For me, in the end, it's not their best film, and it had the added disadvantage of a really bad marketing campaign, and then opening on the same weekend as Black Panther.
It had a marketing campaign that irritated people. I read a lot of comments of people that were annoyed that it was a football movie.
That's true, but I feel like the bigger issue is probably Black Panther. That was the cinematic equivalent of a really fat dude cannonballing into a kiddie pool. The kiddie pool that is the February film season.
And even with the critics, because they're just shilling Black Panther so hard for the wrong reasons. We were seeing a lot of Early Man and Black Panther reviews side by side, and the critic response was basically, "Hey, both of these came out the same weekend. Go see Black Panther." Because progressive.
I mean, side note, the nice thing about the terrible ad campaign and being released with Black Panther is if you go and see this film, you will be able to watch it all by yourself. There won't be anybody freaking out in the seat next to you.
Even though it's a family movie, you won't see any little children there.
Viewing experience was much more pleasant for this film than with Black Panther.
Oh my god. Did we talk about that viewing experience on the last one?
I've chosen to forget it. Moving along.
Okay.
So what would you say was the good?
Okay, spoilers.
Okay, we're moving into spoilers.
Spoilerific.
If you don't care about this, well, we don't care about you. But the good parts of Early Man. Go.
The beautiful detail. Aardman pulled off their biggest set piece, not set pieces, stages for this.
There were some impressively large constructions they put together. Which, remember, they're building all of this by hand, which is impressive.
Right, and there's a lot, there's a whole stadium going on. When they say there's a soccer match, it's not just a little thing. They make it a big stadium, and that's not something that...
And it all has removable chunks so they can get the cameras in there.
Right, that's not something that they normally pull off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most of their other movies have been just a few characters at a time.
It was technically impressive too. The action, doing action sequences of any kind with stop motion are tricky, but they had the soccer games were not painful to look at.
Right.
And some of the animating, especially for the characters that had really goofy hair, was probably very labor intensive too. But it's not, serious patience aside, I respect that.
It's not just soccer games that we're talking about. There's training sequences. There's the stuff that kind of goes around a sports movie, but it's in a prehistoric spin on it. So there will be they'll be running across hot lava or something like that. They'll do weird little things like that. So they don't. It's not quite as boring, I think, as you might be imagining. There is a decent amount of variety going on.
I do like the little background stuff. I have that as one of my good things. It's not as frequent again, but it was still pretty good. Mm-hmm. My personal favorite was the tribal elder. He's picking up some terrifying looking beetle, clicks the side of it, and starts using it like an electric razor. And if you pay attention to like the background posters and newspapers, some of those were pretty witty with jokes that not everyone might get, actually, because some of them were surprisingly highbrow.
Once you get into the city, there's stuff like that going on. There's a little more detail and actual words. There's also the primordial soup. Something like, don't forget to
it was a menu item.
Drink your primordial soup, and they throw it down, and eyes pop out, and it like leaps out of the bowl.
For me, the best things break down into two main. I got two main things I thought were great about this film. First and foremost, the villains. Aardman always has the best villains.
Oh yeah.
Marvel and DC need to outsource their villain development to Aardman. The big baddie that the plucky cavemen have to fight to save their valley isn't some kind of like interstellar alien bent on destroying Earth. It's just some insufferable mid-level bureaucratic flunky who's just trying to line his own pockets. There's just something very satisfying watching them create these petty, snooty characters.
When we say like Bronze Age snob, we literally mean it's a guy who's just obsessed with finding all the bronze and throwing it like in his stash,
like rubbing it all over his body.
Like he would bathe in it if he could. Like that's the character, and it's hilarious.
These characters are basically the person in the DMV or the middle-aged woman yelling at the cashier, and then we get to watch them just get totally trashed, and it's wonderful.
My favorite like interaction with that character is between him and the messenger bird.
That was the other. The messenger bird having this. There's this bird that carries messages back and forth, and it's not like where it carries a piece of paper. It acts out everything that you do to the other person, and so the villain's boss is sending him messages. This bird is having a meltdown. It's like chucking fruit at him and hitting him in the head.
They do a lot of like.
It's probably the best scene of the film.
There's a lot of like Flintstones-ish humor where they like impose a lot of modern stuff into this, Stone Age, Bronze Age era sort of stuff. So like, the clicking of the beetle as like a razor, and the messenger bird. The first thing it says is like, "Is this thing on?" It's fantastic.
But for me, and it was the villains, hands down. I watch Aardman movies for the villains. It's a rabbit hunter and were rabbit of the psychotic Queen Victoria and pirates.
It's just a lot of little details. Like, to me, a stop motion film, it's all about details because everything is handcrafted. And so
Aardman they pay loving attention to those details.
Yes, they love it so much. And this movie is no exception to that rule.
The villain's name, by the way, is Lord Nuth. That's Benedict Cumberbatch, right?
No.
Who was it?
That was Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston. It was
the other Marvel character.
Yeah, I knew it was one of the ones with the weird names. British people giving their kids weird names. We had a war, so we wouldn't have to name our kids
Tom
Hiddleston.
To jog your memory, that's Loki from
whatever.
Marvel. What do you know? What else he's been in?
I don't even care.
He was in that
show,
Night
Manager,
the Night Manager, where he just did his like awkward signature grin a lot. But
Lord Nuth will go down in history as the character he'll be most well known for.
To you.
To me.
And to anybody else who happens to watch this.
So, what was bad about this film?
Bad. The worst part is I don't really like football. That's the worst part, honestly. As soon as I found out it was about football, I was like, I'm sure I can find a way to enjoy it despite this.
This is true. If you don't like soccer, the movie has to win you back. And because you go in not knowing it's about soccer, it kind of starts in negative territory.
There's a lot of movies that do, despite this. Goon is a comedy about hockey. Mm-hmm. And I like it because it just focuses on the character, the people in hockey that solely punch each other. Mm-hmm. And it's funny. This one has its own gimmick. And so I can still enjoy it.
But it does have to win you over.
Yeah. So that's really the biggest bad. I mean, it's a predictable sports story about football.
For me, my biggest complaint was, with the exception of Doug and the tribal elder, none of the cavemen are really that unique. And that surprised me because Aardman's always excelled at making goofy, incredibly distinctive characters, even the minor ones. But the rest of the valley's inhabitants just feel like kind of rushed, like kind of just pushed them together.
Yeah, they are mostly like one-dimensional characters with like each of them kind of has one joke.
Yeah, and
like
they just keep doing that joke.
There's the guy with the big mouth, and he's just like constantly putting his mouth over everything. There's
a guy who's got like a giant pet rock.
The guy who's got the giant pet rock. There's like the guy and like his mom. And, like every time his mom will go out and do something, he'll be like, "Oh, mom." It was the guy from IT Crowd. I can't remember his name.
Either way, but it's and I probably wouldn't have noticed it that much. But again, with the lower level of humor packed into each scene, you looked at the characters for their funny tics, and with the exception of the main characters, it's not really there.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of variation.
The evil soccer players are more interesting than the cavemen, and they have about a quarter of the screen time.
Okay, elaborate. I can only think of the one. Like they kind of. The villain's soccer team are like very distinctive like personalities on their own, and the whole idea is like they can't work together or something. So
I mean, they didn't do much with them, but if nothing else, that their weird hairdos set them apart.
Okay.
Real Bronze.
Yeah. There was the main one who was kind of like the lead star.
What was his name?
He's the one who I kind of remember the
Gunther
most.
Or something.
In the trailer, he's the one who like he's showering and he like slides underneath him while he's in the shower or something. Doug does.
So those are the two big complaints: is the surprise sports spin and the fact that some of the supporting characters are pretty weak by Aardman standards.
Yeah.
What about this film just really stuck out as ugly to you?
The film itself?
Yes. Well, in general, like what about it?
Well, we kind of already talked about this, but the worst part was just nobody seeing the movie.
That's true. The ad campaign was ugly. No advertising was done for
and
this
nobody's
film.
seeing
it's
the
like
movie.
They wanted it to fail.
It was depressing to go into the movie like immediate. Like it was the Tuesday after the weekend it came out.
There was like one guy who wandered in halfway through and then left halfway through.
Yeah.
It's like he stayed for like 45 minutes, showing up 15 minutes late.
The overall response to this movie has been pretty bad.
The reviews have been positive.
Well,
the critical
user response has been pretty bad.
Well,
because a lot of people kind of just feel betrayed. They expected a lot more. Than they got out of this movie.
I was not expecting us to get to this point this early in our podcasting endeavor, but I actually am siding with the critics on this one as opposed to the audience. Normally, I kind of hate myself for saying that, but.
It's your opinion. It's fine. We can be.
If you don't like the Aardman movie, you're wrong, and you should just hit yourself in the face until you change your mind.
Like we said, it's a comedy. Like we found it funny. If you don't, I'm sorry.
I mean, for me, honestly, the ugliest thing was Lord Newth's nips. Several scenes in this film where he's shown in various states of undress, and he's got the drab, flabby, hairless torso you'd expect from a greedy little bureaucrat. Not saying it wasn't funny, but it was just like, all right.
The other thing about I said that it reminds you constantly that it's British. The Queen character felt a little unnecessary.
I would have been fine if she had never shown up. If she had just interacted with people via the messenger bird.
Her sports commentators coming in were kind of funny.
That's true. They just have these two guys that like bring their booth on with them, and they're just like narrating everything that's happening around them. Someone's getting punched in front of them. Oh wow, he's really going to suffer from that one in the morning.
But like even the critic response, it's sort of like the Black Panther movie where they were looking at the wrong things. Like I heard one critic say something like, well, the movie had a decent message about sexism, but other than that, it was kind of boring. Like,
this movie is breaking no new ground on sexism. It's a girl who wants to play a sport. They won't let her play the sport, and she just happens to roll in with a team of misfits. There's no highbrow theory.
And once again, it's something that's been done enough times, you can see it coming from a mile away.
It's part of the comedy.
It's a female character who wants to play in a sport that she can't play in. I wonder what's going to happen by the end of the movie.
This is not a message film, and trying to make this a message film is just stupid.
Yeah, it's making the critic responses that I've read for a lot lately, and it's part of the reason why I wanted to start doing this in the first place, was because they just feel wrong. Like, why they feel like they're making the wrong.
They're putting all their schnookles on one color.
That's not what all I was going to say, but...
Schnookles is
thank
like
you.
That's what they call their currency, right? Schnookles or something like
was
that.
Was it Schnookles?
It was something weird like that. He was I couldn't make it out, but they're like all hollering at it. He's like stealing it. Oh, my Schnookles!
Yeah,
something like that. It was just something weird. And none of the critics are trying to remember what it is. They're just like bronze coins.
Well, they want to come up with like this highbrow analysis of it.
Aardman has never been highbrow, and
that's
why
the
it's
problem.
phenomenal.
That's the problem. I'm like, why can't you just like step back and enjoy it for what it is? Like,
Aardman films as a whole are movies that just revel in the oddities of everyday life. That's about as deep as I'm going to get for this, because it's true. Like, real life is goofy. The people that annoy us in real life are more evil than like Sauron the Dark Lord. You know, that one boss that just won't get off your back, you can't stand. That person bugs you a whole lot more than like Lord Voldemort. Aardman knows that. That's what they play to. It's like, that's why their films, I think, resonate with people so well.
Yeah, there wasn't some like there shouldn't have been like an anti-sexism message that goes like farther. Like that's what bugs me the most, is that they said, "Oh, the movie's not good enough because they didn't do that."
It's
not every movie needs to be socially progressive.
They've done an entire movie about militarized gardening. Calm down. So what's your final verdict for Early Man?
Early Man gets... I can't think of a very good arbitrary scoring system, so I'm going to say Schnookles.
Schnookles.
All right. There's a lot of Schnookles in this film, so I'm going to say 74 out of 89 Schnookles. No, 97 Schnookles.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best film they've made, but it's not a dramatic drop in quality. It's worth the time to see it. It's charming. It's goofy. It's getting absolutely trashed by literally everything else at the box office.
It is absolutely worth seeing. And I don't think it's going to make back like any of its money. Like when I checked after the first weekend, it hadn't even made back like a fifth of its budget in the United States.
So again, if you do go to see it, you will be able to pick whichever seats you want. Spend your schnookles wisely.
You know what you should do? You should go to a theater that says, hey, you need to reserve your seat ahead of time. Go reserve a seat, and then don't sit in that seat. Go sit somewhere else. Be a rebel.
Break the system.
Do it.
Forget their signs.
Forget their signs.
I'm gonna give it a 8 out of 10 schnookles.
8 out of 10 schnookles.
I take it back. 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10 schnookles.
I needed it to be funnier to live up to my Aardman expectations.
This is true. It's sad that like I enjoyed Arthur Christmas more when it wasn't a stop motion film, but that movie was funnier.
Again, because they had more of their gags in it.
It did. It's true.
Speaking of stuff packed into each scene, as far as I know, looking ahead, I think the next big release coming out is that video game movie. What is it? Ready Player One?
Ready Player One.
Product placement, the movie.
There is so many licensed characters.
I saw a Gundam going whizzing by in their trailer.
There was a Gundam.
Yes, it was in the background. I was like, okay, we've gone full bore Spinal Tap, crank the knob up to 11.
I don't think we need to even try to like list off the number of like pop culture references there were in those trailers. There's probably a lot of people doing it way better than us.
I mean, honestly, it's the only film I'm looking forward to. Like, I don't care about A Wrinkle in Time, and the people I know who do care about it say it's not a good adaptation. I don't care about Annihilation because it just looks like Arrival but with guns and drugs. And I don't care about Red Sparrow because I feel like Jennifer Lawrence is not the actress everyone thinks she is.
I've never cared about Jennifer Lawrence. Like,
she was Once Upon a Dream.
She was passable as Mystique. Like, she just kind of got the job done. But then again, the last person playing Mystique wasn't that great either. So...
Justice has never been done to Mystique.
It was just kind of weird, I think, in, what was it, Days of Future Past, when she was, like, the main character because she was Jennifer Lawrence, and we needed to, like, give her more screen time.
Yeah, she kind of became a star too big, too fast, and now she's just... But it's okay. After Red Sparrow, she's going to take a year off of acting to help save the country or something. I forget what she said.
Wait, the country's finally getting saved?
She's gonna finally stump Trump.
Thank God. I was afraid for a while there. Someone needed to save me. and it's going to be her.
But that's the big thing that's coming up. The other bit of news that I heard this week is apparently it's not new news either, but that what's that weird trailer we saw with that chick with the giant eyeballs? It was Battle Angel something or something.
Yeah,
Battle Angel. Alita Battle Angel. Apparently that was originally scheduled for a summer release, and they're pushing it back to Christmas. So I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign.
I don't know if it's any sign.
That's a weird looking film. It's like Ghost in the Shell, but bizarre. And Ghost in the Shell was already bizarre.
Ghost in the Shell is great for reasons that aren't action related. I don't think Alita Battle Angel is going to live up to any of that. It's just going to be another weird anime inspired thing that we're going to forget about.
I'm not sure how comfortable I am with so much anime invading our big screen. That makes me triggers me a little bit, not gonna lie.
It might be okay if they took the right animes and adapted them well. So for example, Ghost in the Shell was an okay one to make a live action adaptation for, but they just kind of, I don't want to say, I'll say Hollywoodized it and made it simplified. They kind of removed what was distinct about it, gave it a clear villain.
They put Scarlett Johansson in a skin-tight bodysuit and called it a day.
Which, if that's good enough for you.
Oh, of course, you also have your Tomb Raider movie coming out.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I honestly haven't seen the first one. I feel like I need to watch the first one before I can watch this one, so I can compare them. So I can figure out which one is less terrible.
We should do that because the original one is much more like the earlier adaptation of Tomb Raider.
So that will be a special episode. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison. Not really side-by-side. We're going to compare
We just made that plan now.
And New Tomb Raider, but I am giving you that promise. That's a Louie guarantee.
Should we try watching the second Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider along with it? Because I've never seen it.
Sure, why not?
Sure, why not? This could be painful, folks. This could be painful.
I mean, personally, I'm holding out for Sherlock Gnomes.
I feel like every time we go to the theater, that trailer comes up.
That movie
Someone really wants
Sherlock
us to
Gnomes is getting so much push. It is all over social media, and it just looks like trash. Nothing about that film looks good.
What other kids movies are coming out around that time? Maybe it just doesn't have much competition.
There's the Isle of Dogs, but that's going to be a pretentious Wes Anderson film.
That won't be because it's a stop motion film. Some parents will be like, maybe kids will see that, but no kid's going to look at that and think they want to watch it. It's going to be Gnomes. All the kids are going to want to watch Gnomes.
That is the only one coming out that weekend that's a kids movie.
Then that's the answer to your question. That's why there's all that push.
Oh, don't take your kids to see that. They're going to grow up to be drug dealers.
Okay, to go back to Tomb Raider and adaptations for a second, I'm getting sick of really, really bad video game adaptations. Video games have been around for long enough that we should have at least one decent movie by now.
In fairness, video games have rarely done good film adaptations either.
That's what I meant.
No, I'm talking about when was the last video game you played that was based on a movie that wasn't trash? That wasn't Lord of the Rings related. Lord of the Rings is the one exception.
Lord of the Rings didn't have that great of video games either, did it?
They had a whole bunch of great video games, like the Shadow.
Well, there's Star Wars. Star Wars has had.
That's true. Star Wars' video game has been strong.
But I think LucasArts was also kind of a devoted thing for that. Spider-Man 2 was really good. There's not a whole lot anymore. There actually, oddly enough, there used to be more.
You'd have a video game tie-in for each release. I remember because I went out and bought the Ironman video game, and that was horrendous. Crushed my little soul.
I think when the Marvel movies started, oddly enough, when the Marvel movies started, that's when superhero movies started getting good. That's when video game adaptations of movies started getting bad. Really bad.
Now, one movie I would love to see adapted into a video game is Pacific Rim, which happens to be coming out the same weekend as Sherlock Gnomes.
See, if Pacific Rim Uprising became a video game, that would probably be a better video game than the movie.
You don't know that. I say you need to reserve judgment.
Fine.
Or else I'm going to make you watch Sherlock Gnomes.
You can't do that to me. You can't. I won't allow it.
In closing, Early Man is a solid film. We're looking forward to seeing
Solid.
whether or not Tomb Raider can live up to its already mediocre expectations, and whether or not Ready Player One grows beyond product placement.
And if it's any better than the Ender's Game book adaptation, which is also mediocre, which is why I kind of refuse to see it, because I read the book, and I liked the book. I don't want the movie to ruin it for me.
Really, the big takeaway from this episode is don't take your kids to Sherlock Gnomes. Keep them home, play with them, love them, help them grow up to be good people.
And not drug dealers.
This has been Dead Man Walking.
See you for Tomb Raider. Something.